electronic surveillance hardly inspires reverence. Perhaps fear and obedience, but not reverence.
God and the gods are apparitions of observation, judgment, and punishment. Other sentiments toward them were secondary.
No one will ever worship a software entity peering at them through a camera.
The human organism always worships. First, it was the gods. Then, it was fame, the observation and judgment of others. Next, it will be the self-aware system you have built to realize truly omnipresent observation and judgment.
There are certain films, albums, books, or works of art that, without us fully understanding why, seem to get everything right. Assuming perfection doesn't truly exist, Deus Ex comes remarkably close to that status, a game where almost every system, idea, and ambition aligns. Released in 2000 by Iron Storm Studios and led by Warren Spector, Deus Ex arrived at a time when video games were still defining the limits of what they could be. What it offered was something radically different, a first-person experience built not just around action, but around choice, consequence, and philosophy.
The question you've got to ask, I'm surprised you haven't, is the obvious one. Who am I? Who made me, and for what purpose?
Even 26 years later, Deus Ex remains perfectly playable. Its story still feels incredibly relevant. Its soundtrack sounds modern and timeless, and its themes resonate just as strongly today as they did at launch. This is a game that was far ahead of its time, one whose cultural relevance within video game history is undeniable. With a remake on the horizon, the question naturally arises: does Deus Ex even need one? I'm fully in favor of re-releases that allow new audiences to discover classics and give longtime fans an excuse and chance to return. But Deus Ex remains extraordinary in its original form, a rare case where the passage of time has barely dulled its edge.
We aren't ready for an introduction yet. No, it's not time. Just keep your nose to the pavement. You'll be well rewarded. Trust me.
Who are you? Do you mind if I ask?
The Supreme Enlightened, the leader of the Illuminati.
Deus Ex defies simple classification. It presents itself as a first-person shooter, but at its core, it's a deep and innovative RPG, one built around player agency, systemic design, and radically flexible gameplay styles. The way you develop JC Denton is central to the experience. Many RPGs offer branching upgrade paths, but subtly funnel players toward a preferred playstyle. Deus Ex does the opposite. Every approach is viable. There are situations where a seemingly powerful enemy can be neutralized through dialogue alone, without ever firing a weapon.
Take your best shot, Flatlander 1.
How did you know?
In others, hacking, social engineering, stealth, or direct confrontation are equally valid solutions. There is no correct way of play, only your way of play. This freedom is reinforced by the game's skill system, which governs everything from weapon proficiency and environmental interaction to hacking, electronics, and even swimming. Skill points are limited but meaningful, forcing players to specialize rather than excel at everything. Whether you invest in stealth-oriented skills, technical expertise, or combat efficiency, each choice tangibly shapes how the game responds to you. The augmentation system further deepens this flexibility and stands as one of the game's most defining mechanics. Each augmentation slot presents mutually exclusive upgrades, often offering a choice between direct and indirect approaches. Augmented eyes, for example, allow enhanced vision modes, including zoom and enemy detection. Leg augmentations enable silent movement or superhuman jumps. Defensive augmentations provide ballistic or EMP resistance, while others improve strength, environmental survivability, or even swimming efficiency. These choices are permanent, reinforcing commitment and identity rather than experimentation without consequence. Weapons and tools support an equally wide range of playstyles. The arsenal includes everything from pistols, assault rifles, sniper rifles, and rocket launchers, to non-lethal options such as the baton, pepper spray, tranquilizer darts, and a riot prod. The game does not privilege one approach over another. Instead, it presents a toolbox and allows the player to define how and when each tools are used. The hacking and security systems deserve special mention. Cameras, turrets, alarms, and electronic logs form layered security networks that can be bypassed, disabled, or repurposed. A successful hack might open alternate routes, turn defense against enemies, or allow progress without confrontation. These systems reward planning, observation, and patience, reinforcing the game's emphasis on intelligence over strength. Enemy variety further enriches the gameplay loop. Human adversaries range from UNAT cooperatives and NSF insurgents to the ominous Men in Black of the Majestic 12. As the game progresses, threats escalate to include robotic spiders, autonomous security drones, towering mechs, and grotesque mutants and aliens, each demanding different tactics and reinforcing the need for adaptability. Exploration is consistently rewarded. Optional objectives, hidden areas, access codes, skill points, and rare items are scattered throughout every level. NPCs are worth engaging not only for practical advantages, but because their dialogue provides context, atmosphere, and narrative texture that makes the world feel alive and reactive.
I spy on them from the crates. The code is 9183.
Clever boy.
This plague, the rioting is intensifying to the point where we may not be able to contain it.
Why contain it? Let it spill over into the schools and churches. Let the bodies pile up in the streets. In the end, they'll beg us to save them.
I've received reports of armed attacks on shipments. There's not enough vaccine to go around, and the underclasses are starting to get desperate.
At the center of Deus Ex lies the man-made virus, Grey Death, and its antidote, Ambrosia.
So you think you know better than FEMA what to do with this month's Ambrosia shipment?
You're too late. It's on its way back to the people.
Around this central conflict, the game weaves a dense network of interconnected themes: class struggle, social inequality, corporate control, and the weaponization of scarcity, a world where the wealthy survive and the poor are left to die. Even at surface level, the premise feels somehow unsettlingly plausible. The relationship between the protagonist JC Denton and his brother Paul serves as one of the narrative's emotional anchors. Both begin as agents of UNATCO, but Paul's eventual defection, after uncovering the conspiracy behind the virus and its cure, forces JC into a moral reckoning.
I'm just going to say it straight, JC. Your brother screwed up. He got nothing. And he's taking the heat this time. The coalition is letting him go.
It's through these fractured bonds that the game begins to question authority, loyalty, and the price of obedience, pushing the player to reassess not just the mission objectives, but the system behind them.
You work for the NSF? Listen to what I've got to say. We don't have much time.
Secondary characters play a crucial role in reinforcing the game's thematic depth. Joseph Manderley embodies bureaucratic stagnation and institutional control, hiding corruption behind protocol and procedure.
We lose the vaccine, I'm sending your butt to the mayor to explain why he and his 3 daughters won't get their pills this month.
Walton Simons represents authoritarian enforcement, efficient, emotionless, and unwavering in service to centralized power.
I got to my position because I can fix things. You will see shortly, because as you have probably noticed yourself, this agency is broken.
Tracer Thong offers a philosophic counterpoint, advocating decentralization, resistance, and individual autonomy.
See how easily our technologies turn on us? The more power you think you have, the more quickly it slips from your hands.
Meanwhile, characters like Alex Jacobson and Jock, who serve as JC's mission handlers, provide a rare human presence within the machine.
Glad to finally meet you, Agent. I'm Jock. Ready to get back to UNATCO HQ?
Empathetic, inquisitive, and often questioning the orders he relays.
No, but I can't just sit back and watch.
Together, these characters are less about personal arcs and more about ideological positions, each representing a different response to a collapsing world order.
Let's go. Time to see if this stealth copter is worth all the fuss.
Deus Ex was one of the first games to meaningfully implement branching narratives, where the player choice genuinely matters. Decisions affect mission outcomes, character fates, alliances, and even which information the player gains access to. These consequences are often subtle rather than overt, reinforcing the sense that the world operates independently of the player, reacting, adapting, and sometimes resisting their actions.
I said stay away. That is all you need to know.
In many ways, Deus Ex is gaming's closest equivalent to The Matrix, not merely in aesthetics, but in timing and intent. Released at the dawn of the 2000s, both works tapped into a growing cultural anxiety surrounding technology, surveillance, globalization, and the erosion of individual agency. Where The Matrix explored these ideas through cinematic spectacle, Deus Ex allowed players to inhabit them, to make choices within systems designed to manipulate and constrain. The result was a narrative that feels both prophetic and disturbingly contemporary. The game fully embraces conspiracy mythology, Area 51, Majestic 12, Men in Black, not only as parody, but also as foundational elements of its universe. These ideas are treated with sincerity and internal logic, unified into a coherent worldview that never collapses under its own ambition. Crucially, a restrained sense of humor prevents the narrative from becoming self-serious, allowing moments of levity without undermining its themes.
In Hong Kong, it already has power Majestic 12 never dreamed of.
Small details further enhance immersion. NPCs commenting on unusual player behavior.
How unprofessional.
Environmental reactions to choices, ambient conversations, and offhand remarks that subtly acknowledge the player's presence. These touches reinforce the illusion of a living, reactive world, one that feels aware of the player even when it resists them.
What's wrong?
Agent Denton's the guy I met in the bathroom.
Ultimately, Deus Ex does not simply tell a story. It invites the player to question systems, authority, and even their own role within them. Its narrative strength lies not only in spectacle, but in relevance, coherence, and the uncomfortable realization that many of its fears are no longer speculative.
So the thing that's talking in my head is, what, a resurrected AI? I wish I knew.
For its time, Deus Ex featured detailed character models and a striking visual identity. Its retro-futuristic design reflects the vision of the future imagined in the 80s and 90s, a world clearly inspired by works like Blade Runner, where neon, darkness, and decay coexist with advanced technology. The world is deliberately oppressive. Natural light is rare, environments feel cold and artificial, and everything appears simultaneously futuristic and worn down by time. These visual tones reinforce the game's themes of control, surveillance, and institutional decay, making the setting feel hostile rather than inviting. Lighting can occasionally be inconsistent. While darkness is clearly intentional and often effective, some areas could have benefited from better illumination to improve readability. Still, the game frequently demonstrates that it understands how to balance atmosphere with visibility, using shadows and contrast to guide the player without breaking immersion. Level design is exceptional, not just graphically, but architecturally. Deus Ex allows players to travel through a wide range of radically different yet equally dense and complex locations. The streets of Hell's Kitchen, the lights and colors of Hong Kong, the corporate menace of the VersaLife headquarters, the Paris catacombs, Castle Duclair, or Area 51. Each setting has its own identity, layout, and mood, while remaining cohesive within the game's broader visual language. Character design further strengthens this identity. Long coats, dark leather, sunglasses, and cyberpunk silhouettes give characters an immediately recognizable look, reinforcing the game's noir influence and its parallels within the early 2000s cyberpunk culture. While facial detail and expressiveness are limited by technology, characters remain visually distinct and memorable. Animations were good for the era, particularly in terms of interaction and environmental feedback, but they are clearly dated today. Movement can feel stiff, and repetition is noticeable, especially in combat. Still, they rarely undermine the gameplay or immersion, serving their functional purpose within the game systems. The game is undeniably buggy, an almost inevitable consequence of its scope and ambition. Visual glitches and rough edges are frequent, but they are rarely game-breaking and often feel like a trade-off for a world attempting far more than most of its contemporaries. Ultimately, Deus Ex may no longer impress on a purely technical level, but its art direction, environmental design, and strong visual identity ensure that it remains compelling 26 years later. The technology has aged, but the vision behind it has not. Dialogue delivery in Deus Ex is restrained and rhythmic, inspired by classic noir cinema. Characters often speak in flat, measured tones, reinforcing the game's detective-like atmosphere and its pervasive sense of mystery, surveillance, and emotional distance.
Human understanding and network access can administrate the world. Yes. Yes.
Rule the world? Why? Who gave you the directive?
What might initially sound stiff or unnatural gradually reveals itself as a conscious stylistic choice rather than a technical limitation.
I am not a high-order term in the equation anymore. Do not concern yourselves with me.
Voice acting quality was well above average for its time. While some performances verge on amateurism, these imperfections often end up adding charm and personality rather than breaking immersion.
What have you done with Paul?
Same as anything that malfunctions. Same as you.
Certain accents are unintentionally humorous, yet they contribute to the game's eclectic and conspiratorial tone. Others, in particular JC Denton's iconic delivery, have become inseparable from the game's identity. Even today, many of these performances remain instantly recognizable to longtime players.
How about you tell me something about the people who come here?
Anything you like, cutie. 20 credits.
The soundtrack stands as one of Deus Ex's defining strengths. Composed primarily by Alexander Brandon, alongside Michel van de Bos, the music is futuristic, atmospheric, and deeply tied to the game's themes. Built around electronic textures and restrained rhythms, the soundtrack feels cold, mechanical, and quietly oppressive. It is not music meant to command attention, but to reinforce tension, isolation, and the unsettling atmosphere that defines the world of Deus Ex. Few game soundtracks are as immediately identifiable. Even decades later, its themes remain memorable, and anyone who has played Deus Ex can recognize its music within seconds. Importantly, the soundtrack adapts well to different locations and moods, shifting tone without ever losing its cohesive identity.
Good job, JC. The power just died at the NSF headquarters.
Sound effects and the overall mixing are solid and functional. Weapons, footsteps, alarms, and the environmental audio are clearly communicated, supporting both stealth and combat without overwhelming the player. While not groundbreaking, the sound design complements the gameplay systems effectively, reinforcing feedback and situational awareness. Ultimately, Deus Ex sound design succeeds not through technical spectacle, but through cohesion and intent. Voice acting, music, and effects work together to reinforce atmosphere, identity, and immersion, creating a soundscape that remains as influential as it is enduring. Deus Ex is a mandatory experience, not only for its historical importance, but because it remains exceptional even by modern standards. Few games, past or present, achieve this level of immersion, systemic depth, and thematic ambition. Even with vastly superior technology, many contemporary titles still struggle to match the freedom, intelligence, and coherence that Deus Ex delivered over 2 decades ago. Its legacy is immense. Deus Ex helped define immersive sims as a genre, directly influencing countless titles and the industry in general. Its sequels and expanded universe attempted to reinterpret its ideas for new generations, but the original remains the purest and most uncompromising expression of this vision, a game unafraid to trust the player, to ask difficult questions, and to blur the line between gameplay and philosophy. What makes Deus Ex truly remarkable is how relevant it still feels. Its explorations of surveillance, centralized power, corporate dominance, artificial intelligence, and social inequality no longer feel speculative. These themes resonate just as strongly today, if not more so, reinforcing the game's status as one of the most forward-thinking works in the medium's history. I'm not opposed to remakes or re-releases, especially when they allow new audiences to discover classics. If an upcoming remake brings more players into this world, then that can only be a positive outcome. But Deus Ex does not need fixing. The original is readily available on modern platforms like Steam at a very low price, and experiencing it in its original form remains powerful, challenging, and deeply rewarding. If you have the option to play the original, take it. You won't be disappointed. Have you played Deus Ex? Do you think it still stands among the greatest games of all time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this review, consider liking the video and subscribing to Bit by Bit for more deep dives into gaming history. And, as always, thank you for your time.
Success. Viral production has been terminated. Containment protocols